Part 2. The Scientific Quest for Answers. Expeditions, Discoveries, and the Tesla Connection. The first scientific expedition. Only in 1921, largely thanks to the efforts of Leonid Kulik, the founder of Soviet meteorite science, was the first scientific expedition made to the site of the Tunguska event. Later, he surveyed the area 4 more times, trying to find the remains of a celestial body and examining the testimonies of eyewitnesses. The data collected by Kulik's expeditions laid the foundation for all attempts to solve the mystery of the Tunguska event. What the scientists found. Scientists saw that in a huge area, all the trees were knocked down. The area was butterfly-shaped. Measurements showed that the total impact area was 2,150 square kilometers. That is, almost the size of Moscow. During the expeditions, Leonid hoped to find a funnel-shaped crater remaining after a celestial body fell, like the famous Arizona crater. However, neither he nor his successors were successful in these efforts. No distinct crater was found in the area claimed to be the epicenter of the explosion. The airburst theory. When it became clear there was no crater, a new hypothesis was proposed, and this hypothesis later became dominant in the scientific community. According to it, in Tunguska, a meteorite must have exploded at approximately 10 to 15 kilometers altitude, that is, in the air. Something similar was observed, but on a much smaller scale, during the fall of the Chelyabinsk meteorite in 2013. However, not all scientists agreed with this view. There was also an assumption that the object hit the ground, opened a crater, and this crater was later filled with water. The mystery of Lake Checo. In this regard, Lake Checo, which is exceptionally shaped, has long attracted the attention of researchers. Located in a deserted area 8 kilometers north of the assumed epicenter of the explosion, this lake has a round shape. Until then, it was not known for certain whether Lake Checo existed before 1908, because the existence of this lake was not indicated on any map of that period. Italians led by geologist Luca Gasparini from the Bologna Institute of Marine Geology, who analyzed the sedimentary rocks, stated that the age of the lake was approximately 1 century, meaning it roughly corresponded to the time of the Tunguska meteorite fall. This piece plunged into the soft, marshy ground and melted the permafrost layer, releasing a certain amount of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane. This expanded the original crack and gave the lake its rather uncharacteristic shape. And Gasparini himself claimed that their hypothesis was compatible with all previous versions. If the object is an asteroid, its fragments can be buried under the lake, and if it's a comet, then its chemical signature should be found in the deepest sediment layers. Unfortunately, despite the attractiveness of this hypothesis, subsequent analyses of sediment deposits at the bottom of the lake showed that the lake was formed long before 1908 and could in no way be associated with the Tunguska meteorite. A high element content was recorded pointing to a possible cosmic origin of the fallen material. In 2013, the journal Planetary and Space Science wrote that microscopic samples discovered by Nikola Tesla in 1978 revealed the presence of carbon forms associated with the fall of extraterrestrial bodies formed under high pressure. The search for explanations. The Tunguska event not only contributed to the emergence of a lively interest in science among the masses, but also became a terrible reminder of the dangers threatening us from space. Amateur authors have tried to associate the Tunguska phenomenon with lightning strikes, sudden volcanic eruptions caused by earthquakes, the explosion of a methane bubble, antimatter invasion, microscopic black holes, and also the crash of an extraterrestrial vehicle and laser weapons. The Tesla hypothesis, the most controversial theory. The most interesting of these theories was that the event was Nikola Tesla's wireless electricity transmission experiment. It's very difficult to say exactly who and when first associated Tesla's name with the Tunguska event. Some sources mention the name of the modern German writer and researcher of the famous prophet Nostradamus, Manfred Dimda. Others say that clues that Tesla was involved in the events in Siberia appeared in American newspapers in the early 20th century. Tesla's wireless energy transmission. It's claimed that Tesla could transfer a huge beam of energy over a distance of several thousand kilometers. And it's known that in an interview with the New York Times, Tesla said that the experimental setups he made for wireless power transmission could turn it into a lifeless desert. However, researchers still haven't found the magazine issue in which this interview was published. But the Tesla and Tunguska phenomenon hypothesis was published both in the pages of popular science publications and in the form of documentary films shown even on serious federal TV channels. A few years ago, this assumption became even more popular with the emergence on the internet of a document called Tesla's Unknown Manuscript. The Mysterious Manuscript. The author of the text, Mikhail Shapkin, claims that an acquaintance living in the United States found a notebook in the lining of an old firefighter's helmet purchased from a discount sale. And allegedly, in this notebook, Nikola Tesla himself admits that the Tunguska phenomenon was the result of an experiment in wireless energy transmission over long distances, and describes how he created an etheric vortex ring generator, or etheric vortex objects. Excerpts from the Tesla manuscript. Here are some excerpts from these controversial records. If you send such objects to the moon, they will reflect from the moon's electrostatic field and thus return to Earth at a distance significantly far from the transmitter. Since the angle of arrival equals the angle of reflection, energy can be transmitted over very long distances, even to the other side of the Earth. I conducted several experiments transferring energy toward the moon. During these experiments, it turned out that Earth is surrounded by an electric field. This field destroyed weak vortex objects. Vortex objects with great energy broke through Earth's electric field and went into space. And then it occurred to me that if I could create a resonance system between Earth and the moon, the transmitter power would decrease, and very large energy could be extracted from this system. After calculating how much energy could be extracted, I was surprised. From the calculation, it became clear that the energy extracted from this system was enough to completely destroy a large city. I understood for the first time then that my system could be dangerous for humanity. But I still really wanted to make my experiment. I began to secretly and carefully prepare for the crazy experiment. The fateful experiment. According to the claim, it took Tesla a long time to choose a place for the experiment, and finally, he chose Siberia. Doubts tormented him. Would his inventions really be for the benefit of people? The estimated time was approaching. Minutes passed very slowly and seemed like years. I thought I would go crazy with this waiting. Finally, the expected moment came and nothing happened. Another 5 minutes passed, but still nothing extraordinary happened. Various thoughts came to my mind. Maybe the clock mechanism didn't work, or the system didn't work, or maybe nothing should have happened. I was on the verge of madness. As if for a moment the light went out, and a strange feeling appeared throughout my body, as if thousands of needles were stuck inside me. Soon everything ended, but there was an unpleasant metallic taste in my mouth. All my muscles relaxed. I started to hear a noise inside my brain. I felt completely overwhelmed. When I returned to my laboratory, I saw that everything was fine. There was only a thick smell of burning in the air. I was gripped by painful anticipation again, because I didn't know the results of my experiment. And only later, after reading in newspapers about extraordinary events, did I understand what a terrible weapon I had created. Of course, I expected a strong explosion, but this wasn't an explosion. It was a disaster. Tesla's regret. In this so-called Tesla notebook, later expressions of regret appear. Tesla states that he won't reveal this to the world because he thinks that with this weapon, humanity will destroy itself. He writes clearly, "This secret will go to the grave with me." Scientists think these manuscripts are nonsense. There's much more in the manuscripts, but the general impression can be extracted from these parts. Interestingly, even very specialized sites publishing the unknown manuscript often write that they couldn't communicate with Mikhail Shapkin and don't know who he is. However, over time, quotes from the unknown manuscript began to circulate more and more frequently in various articles and films about Tesla, and even began to appear in works that try to stay away from sensational claims about Tesla, despite claiming to be bestsellers. I wonder in which edition of Tesla's works did the author find this article? The question is quite rhetorical. The Peary expedition connection. There's another version. Apparently, Tesla didn't want to cause a disaster in Siberia. His real purpose was only to facilitate the path of American Arctic explorer Robert Peary's expedition by illuminating the sky closer to the North Pole. As far as can be said, Tesla really had the idea of atmospheric illumination. Later, in 1914, he said that if a certain electric charge were passed through the upper layers of the atmosphere, this would cause the air to glow, and the whole world would turn into a giant lamp, so to speak. But as always, he didn't explain the details of this plan. Tesla's biographer speaks. John O'Neill, who wrote the scientist's biography, writes that Tesla returned to this idea in the 1920s. O'Neill says he asked the Master of Lightning a series of questions on this subject, but Tesla remained silent. "If I answer your 3 questions, you'll know as much as I do on this subject," he said. O'Neill continues, "Nevertheless, Dr. Tesla," I continued, "in my article I will describe the only plan that seems feasible to me under the known laws of physics, and you can approve or reject it. Your molecular bombardment lamps produce powerful ultraviolet and X-rays, and the rays can be directed to distant distances. In the meantime, they strongly ionize the air as they pass through it. By ionizing the atmosphere, you can make it a good conductor of all kinds of electricity at sufficiently high voltages. If you send a current of such rays from a high mountain into the sky, it will create a conductive channel at any height in the atmosphere. And you can send your currents with high frequency to the upper layers of the atmosphere without needing to reflect from the ground and without any problems. If you publish this," Tesla said, "then it will be your circuit, not mine." O'Neill's article came out anyway, but neither confirmation nor denial came from the inventor. Problems with the Tesla theory. A few weeks before the events in Tunguska, Tesla indirectly told the press that he could illuminate the path of Robert Peary's expedition. However, such statements by the scientist haven't yet been found in written form either. Such explanations that don't contain technical details only become a subject of skepticism and mockery among journalists. Also, why would Tesla want to illuminate the sky exactly on June 30th and during the daytime? Moreover, at that date, the poles are already sufficiently illuminated. The sun doesn't completely set even at night. What you're watching are Arctic nights experienced between March and September. Peary's expedition had started on June 6th. This means the traveler was still at the beginning of his journey and in the easiest part. He later announced on April 6, 1909, that he had reached the North Pole, which led to a long debate. Did he really conquer the pole, or couldn't he reach it? But this isn't our topic. Theoretically, if Tesla really wanted to illuminate the sky for Peary, he should have done this in February through April 1909. At that time, the team was really in bad shape. People were tired, provisions were almost exhausted, and in general, the last kilometers were the hardest. And here we're talking about a great scientist and inventor. The Wardenclyffe Tower problem. Finally, according to official information, Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, where he conducted these experiments, closed in 1906. The Tunguska event occurred in 1908. So how did Tesla secure the technical means to conduct such a massive experiment? Defenders of this hypothesis claim that he could do this and refer to a statement he made in the summer of 1908. "I have a laboratory and I still conduct experiments there." According to them, what he called a laboratory here was where he was conducting some secret research under Wardenclyffe's patronage. Again, a Russian-origin writer, Anatoly Maximov, writes, "Everything shows that in the summer of 1908, during the Tunguska disaster, the tower was technically sound. and believes this means Tesla could charge a very large amount of electricity to eastern Siberia in the next experiment. However, the author admits that there is actually no documentary evidence for this assumption, and builds his hypothesis on indirect evidence and Tesla's technical capabilities to conduct this experiment. The counter-argument. But according to opponents of this assumption, believing that a UFO might have exploded there is much smarter than believing Tesla might have done it. As we said, there's no evidence that Tesla was still working at Wardenclyffe in the summer of 1908. By that time, almost all valuable equipment had already been removed from the laboratory for deaths. Journalists and curious tourists were climbing the tower. By then, Tesla had even lost the land rights on Long Island, so he wasn't in the mood to send energy pulses across Siberia or illuminate the sky for Robert Peary. He had enough other, more worldly concerns, and at that time, he was interested in completely different inventions. End of Part 2.